All, welcome to economics class. How are you all doing? So, moving on to the next topic, we will begin the class by recapping the previous topics from the previous class. All right. So, in the previous class, we studied about Indian economy during reforms. So during the various changes that was made in the various sectors, what was the condition of the economy? What was the various sectors development or decline? What happened is what we studied in the previous lesson. And we also studied about foreign direct investment, foreign how we started getting the investment from different countries due to liberalization, due to globalization, right? So these were the various foreign investor companies that came into our country, and which gave a great financial support to our nation. Then we had this FII is nothing but foreign institutional investors, which were again another foreign financial investors who invested in industrial and service oriented industries of our country. We saw the various reform changes in growth and development of employment of our economy. Reforms in agriculture, what were the changes? There were no much changes due to the growth in agriculture, or the revenue that was generated in agriculture was not up to mark compared to the 1980s decades. Okay. Then we also learnt about reforms in industry. Disinvestment, we understood what do you mean by disinvestment and how disinvestment helped the government to generate revenue to fulfill the needs of the lacking areas. Reforms and fiscal policies. So girls, there we concluded the third chapter. So these were the areas which the reform helped or ignored, right? So moving on from the colonial rule to the actual pace of the economy, drastically certain areas had growth and certain areas were still stagnant. Service sectors were always on a boom due to globalization coming into picture. There were strategies laid down by different countries for helping our country to know the foreign markets, to develop themselves in the foreign countries. By saying that, our economy welcomed the foreign exchange inflow in our nation, and India being the largest country among the entire countries in the world, we were called as the foreign reserves. Okay. So, by saying this, we'll move on to the next part of the lesson. The new chapter we are starting. In fact, it belongs to Unit 3, girls. Okay, and it is called as poverty. The lesson name is poverty. Unit 3, Chapter 4, poverty. Let us see the current challenges facing the Indian economy due to poverty. What is poverty, girls? Can anybody just give me a meaning of poverty? You can quickly message me. What do you mean by poverty? Okay, message me with your name and your section. First, meaning of poverty, then your name and section. That will be considered as your attendance. All right, girls? What do you understand by looking at this picture, girls? How the economy is framed, how you see a beautiful park, right? When you see the whole as a park, it's so lovely, it's so colorful, it's so beautiful. behind the scenes there is something also. We are ignoring other parts which has to be made beautiful. So these are the areas which still require the development, which still require support to grow. You can see there's a small boy begging for food. They don't have ample amount of food, shelter to fulfill their day-to-day needs. It's such a sad thing to say that India is one amongst various other countries, developing countries, still facing poverty as a biggest challenge, and this is a crisis to the country because ours is the largest population, and being in this largest population, India needs to improve in its areas where poverty is overruling everything. Why there is poverty? Poverty is due to overpopulation. And when overpopulation, they don't have enough sufficient resources available for them. They do not have proper shelter, they do not have proper food, they do not have proper education. There are so many factors that influence poverty. There are so many factors influencing because of poverty. So, one needs to understand when you need to develop a country, you need to focus on the saddest part of the economy or the poorest part of the economy. When you upbring those part of the economy which needs help. So, being a government or being a leader, one needs to focus on the areas which needs attention, not those areas which is already flourishing. So that brings or uplifts an economic growth. Now, moving on to the next slide, we'll understand in a better way how and what is poverty, who are the people who are into this situation. Introduction. No society can surely be flourishing and happy of which the far greater part of the members are poor and miserable. This is said by Adam Smith. Who is Adam Smith? Adam Smith is the father of economics. Do you all know who's the father of economics, girls? Any subject, it will have a person behind it who reforms it. So, Adam Smith is the father of economics. So, he has brought various knowledge and various schemes, strategies in economics. How a country can inculcate all those and develop in its own way. So, according to Adam Smith, what does he say? Such a beautiful thing. There is no country that can develop, it cannot flourish if it does not focus on its members. Who? Which members? The members who are poor, the members who are miserable. If you do not uplift them, then your country can never be satisfied. You need to do an effort. There should be an effort from your side to improve certain areas. If you do not do that, how much ever you pour in to a place which is already filled, what is going to happen? It is going to outflow. So, focus on those places which needs help is what Adam Smith is trying to tell. The pattern of development that the successive 5-year plan envisaged laid emphasis on the upliftment of the poorest of poor, integrating the poor into the mainstream and achieving minimum standard of living for all. So, irrespective of all the plans that were laid for the economic upliftment, what happened? Where is the standard of living of the people? The poverty level is still going down. What you need to do? You need to focus, you need to make your goals strong to upbring these people. Which people? You need to integrate them. You need to source them. You need to give them minimum basic shelter. The standard of living, if it is if they are living a minimum standard of living is also fine. But when it goes the below standard of living, There is when the situation arises of poverty. Saying this, while addressing the Constituent Assembly in 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru had said, "This achievement is but a step. This is a step, not an achievement. An opening of opportunity to the great triumphs and achievements that await us. The ending of poverty and ignorance and disease and inequality of opportunity." So, Nehru ji says that this is the first step of a developed economy where you attain or you achieve the ending of poverty. You should keep a full stop for this poverty. The ignorance in people should be removed. The diseases, cleanliness should be inculcated amongst people. A good sanitization should be provided in the infrastructure. Then is when you can see a wonderful economy, is what our Nehru said. Poverty is not only a challenge for India, as more than one fifth of the world's poor live in India alone, but also for the world, where about 300 million people are not able to meet their basic needs. Girls, like India, there are other countries. Okay, Bangladesh is one country, Pakistan, Africa. There are so many countries which is facing poverty to such an extent they are totally grounded. They do not have a ray of hope to even think there is some hand that is going to come and help them, because they do not have one meal a day. That is the situation. We are all blessed girls. Today we are eating 3 meals a day with a good shelter, with all the things, amenities that is being provided. But look at those people who do not have anything. So please understand the situation of the world and be content with what you have. So poverty is a major role that plays in an economy. Okay? Most often, poverty is a situation that people want to escape. Nobody wants to be poor. Do you want to be poor? I don't want to be a poor person. I don't want to get into suffering. So, what do? I work hard, isn't it? I make sure I do not think below my standards, right? There is a standard of living for every individual. Likewise, nobody would wish and want to be poor. They become poor. How do they become poor? There is something that happens to them, isn't it? What happens to them? So let us see in the further points. So, poverty is a call to action for the poor and the wealthy alike. A call to change the world so that many more may have enough to eat, adequate shelter, access to education and health, protection from violence, and a violence in what happens in their communities. One need to understand, if you are content, fine. If you have more, please share, is what our leaders said. Never ever keep things in excess. Give it. There might be a person who might be in need of it. You have an extra pair of socks, please give it to someone. You have something that you do not use for ages, please give it to someone. Please donate it. Donate it to the needy, for those who need it, who are poor, not to those who already have it. All right? So, that is a change that you all need to make. Who are poor, girls? Who are poor? What do you think? So, you would have noticed that in all localities and neighborhoods, both in rural and urban areas, there are some of us who are poor and some who are rich. Isn't it? You could see in your own neighborhood, wow, he has a big house. He has a Mercedes Benz. He must be really rich. So, all this we come to a conclusion by looking into the way they live their life. The standard of living of a particular person decides whether he is rich or he is poor. Now, can a person living in a hut have a Mercedes Benz? Do you think so? No, right? So that particular person is called as poor because he do not have basic needs. Okay? So we come to a conclusion saying that push cart vendors, street cobblers, women who string flowers, rack pickers, vendors, and beggars are some examples of poor and vulnerable groups or in urban areas. So we see so many people, so many vendors who sit down on the streets, on the roads to sell certain commodities. So we come to a conclusion saying that they are poor. Why are they over there? Because they do not have basic education. They can reach to their living only by selling those commodities sitting on the streets because they can do only that work. So people, they pick up plastic papers on the roads. Haven't you seen girls? They have one big bag on their shoulders. They pick plastic bottles, glass bottles, they put it in the bags and they go sell it and they get certain amount. I have seen every day there's a lady who comes and picks garbage in my locality. She'll ask me, please give me the milk covers, the Nandini packet or whatever the milk packets that you buy, please give me that. What are they doing? One packet is fetching them some money. So, likewise, every day from every house, if they collect, they're getting some money. They are that is the state of poor people. She'll ask me, Akka, please give me some clothes if you have old clothes. Can I borrow some shoes? Give me money, old saris, old curtains. There are so many things we give it away, girls. We need to bring in that habit in ourselves to not store things which we do not use. Maybe somebody needs it. Let us help them. Okay, so by doing so we can erase or we can remove this poverty thing, we can remove poor people out of our economy, we can develop each and every person's standard of living, help each other is all the way, the step towards the growth of economy. Saying this, let's go on to the next, just have a look at the picture, girls. Do I and you live in this kind of houses? Can you imagine ourselves living in such places? Do we, girls? If no, then we are not poor. Understood? God has given us. We have a proper shelter. We are blessed. Those people who live there are called as poor. The poor people possesses few assets and reside in kacha hutments with walls made of baked mud and roofs made of grass, thatch, bamboo and wood. This is how they live their lives. So when it is heavy rain, when there is a breeze, no matter what, they have to live. Can you see? Can anybody go sleep inside? Is there ample amount of light, ventilation? Nothing. But still, they continue living in such places because they don't have any other place to go. The poorest of them do not even have such dwellings. Some, just for the sake of saying poor, they have this much of shelter to live. But there are people who do not even have this kacha houses to live, the huts to live. They sleep on streets, they sleep in the tubes. There are some parks where they place some construction materials. They will be sleeping in those kind of tankers, containers. That is the saddest part of the economy. In rural areas, many of them are landless. So, coming to the urban areas like Bangalore, this is the situation. But in rural areas like villages and all, they even have nothing. They don't have even land. What do they do? Even if some of them possess land, it is only dry or wasteland. See, they call themselves as farmers, right? So, farmers also become poor. Why? Because they don't have enough of money to invest on the land. So, it becomes barren. They don't have water. They don't have proper fertilization for the crops. They don't have enough irrigation facilities. So, what happens? They become poor because they're not able to meet their standard of living. They're not able to supply food for their family members. They don't have a proper, they sell everything they have for meeting day to day living. So they are landless. So people in rural are landless who do not have any way, they don't have any way to earn income. Their main work or employment was agriculture. When they don't have any investment for agriculture, what they become? They become poor. Now, what leads next after being poor? The poor lack basic literacy. Literacy is nothing but education and skills, and hence have very limited economic opportunities. When you don't have literacy, when you don't have proper skills in you, then there is no opportunities provided for you. Who will give opportunities for a rag picker? Tell me. You will just ask him to take your kachada and go, right? Will you ask him, come and please wash my car? Do you tell him that? Because he himself has to be cleaned. So that is the situation. Next, what does this being poor lead to? Poor people also face unstable employment. Okay, malnutrition is alarming high among the poor. When they cannot feed their family, what if a poor person's wife is pregnant? She is going to deliver the baby. She needs to eat healthy food. If she being a pregnant, if she does not eat healthy food, how, what kind of baby is she going to give birth to? She's going to give birth to a underweight baby, a premature baby, a baby with a mental ailment. There are so many possibilities if a mother does not take care or does not give proper nutrition for the baby which is not even seeing the world, right? And what happens once the baby is born? The baby is born and it is lacking nutrition, it is not developing on time, so that leads to malnutrition. So this is growing, and you can see, you can witness this in Africa. Various parts of Africa is facing malnutrition. This is a severe crisis in Africa. Ill health, disability, or serious illness makes them physically weak. Okay, so a large section of people, poor people, do not even have access to safe drinking water. So when they become poor, they do not have basic education of knowing which is good, which is bad. So they don't know which water to drink. Okay, so drinking water becomes a major criteria for them. They go fetching water from places like reserves and wells. So they just dig the water from there. Knowingly, unknowingly, they consume contaminated water. You can see the pictures. Can you see there's a lady, she's fetching water from a small well where the water is completely drained. And there's another lady who's feeding the baby with the glass. And do you think we feed our babies this kind of water? So you need to understand what is the literacy level of these mothers. So they don't have basic literacy, they don't have enough finance, they do not have the ability to take care of their children. So there is evidence of extreme gender inequality also. So this is something very common. Even today, we see there is a lot of gender bias between boys and girls, which again impacts on the economic growth. So inequality in gender, in a participation of gainful employment, education, and in decision making within the family impacts severely on the economic welfare. So, and most of the families, I can say uneducated family or developing family, or they don't know what is the concept. So they still think that only male in the family should work, or only male should give the decision or opinions, which is totally against the current world situation. So poor women receives, as I already told you, poor women receive less care on their way of being a mother, a new mother, or motherhood. So when you do not have enough money, enough shelter, or the income to provide for your family, what happens to the mother or going to be a mother? She's going to deliver the baby in few months. When she's not given a proper nutrition diet, what happens to the baby? I've already told you in the previous slides. So that is the condition of the poor people and the poor family. So their children are less likely to survive or be born healthy. Malnutrition or underdeveloped babies are born. So again, after they deliver this kind of children, what happens? Can they afford for the medical ailments? No, they cannot afford for the medicines for the underdeveloped baby. Then couple of weeks the baby try battle its life, and then the baby might lose its life. Or even if it's surviving, it is going to be a great burden on the parents. So this is the situation of a mother who is undernutrition. Economists identify the poor on the basis of their occupation and ownership of assets. So always it is understood how much you have, how much you own, the assets that you have. You're being concluded as rich or poor or middle, what to say, uh, yeah, your standard of living is being declared or concluded on the basis of your living. So moving on to the next slide, how are poor people identified? Now we you all know who are poor. Now how will you identify who's poor? So India has to find the sustainable strategies to address the causes of poverty and design schemes to help the poor out of their situation. So just by introducing lot of reforms in all the various sectors of the economy does just not help the economy's development, but India should focus on the areas that has to be developed. Poverty has to be decided, how it has to be fought. They have to design various schemes to evade the poverty out of our country. The poor should be decided, they should be shown a place where they can improve themselves. They should be given opportunities to come out of various ideas. There is need to develop in a scale, a measure of poverty. You need to measure, there should be a scale to measure the poverty. You cannot conclude any person with assets cannot be said he is rich, he is richest, no. But what is the income that is he earning is all matters, and the factors that make up the criteria for the measurement of poverty or mechanism need to be carefully chosen. So this is a responsible job done by the government and the leaders of the country, measuring or designing the schemes for identifying poverty. So in pre-independent India, Dadabhai Naroji, see, those days that where education was not privileged, during those days only, our leader called Dadabhai Naroji was the first to discuss the concept of poverty line. So he looked into poverty so seriously, and he was the first person to identify, yes, India is also poor. India has a place where poverty is going to be such a dangerous situation. And how did he gauge, how did he understand the poverty thing? So, I'll tell you, there is one concept where Dadabhai Naroji saw the poverty thing. It was in the jail. So, he started to frame poverty line by looking into the standard of living of the people, the criminals who lived in the jail, how much they consumed, how they lived their life, how much they earned for the work they did in the jail, was the conclusion made by Dadabhai Naoroji. So, in post independent India, there have been several attempts to work out a mechanism to identify the number of poor in the country. So now it is due to various leaders, due to various ideas, methodologies followed by different countries, and India also inculcated various methods to identify the poverty in our country. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So in 1962, the Planning Commission, now called as Niti Aayog, formed a study group. So what was the study group? So it is called as Niti Aayog. This concept or this Aayog helped, it is a planning commission which helped the poverty to, erade the poverty. In 1979, another body called the Task Force on Projections of Minimum Needs and Effective Consumption Demand was formed. So this was another commission. So there were various commissions that was coming up to help the poverty in our country. In 1989 and 2005, expert groups were constituted for identifying the number of poor in the country. All right. For the purpose of defining poverty, we divide people into categories: the poor and the non-poor. And the poverty line separates these two. You know who are poor now? Who are non-poor, girls? The rich people are non-poor, right? Now we'll understand. However, there are many kinds of poor. So when you conclude poor, amongst poor, you have again various categories. So poor could be of absolutely poor, the very poor, and the poor. Absolutely poor are, they do not have any idea how to live their life, how to reach for their basic needs. Very poor are those who do not have shelters to live. They at least, try and get their basic needs. The poor are those who live in the huts, and they rack pickers or the flower vendors. They are called as poor. Similarly, there are various kinds of non-poor. The middle class, the upper middle class, the rich, the very rich, and absolutely rich. Now, rich people, the non-poor class is being classified into various ways. So, we all belong to either upper class or the middle class or the rich, the very rich. I am not very rich and neither absolutely rich. So, these are something in an economy that is being described under the non-poor. All right, girls. So middle class families, you all know, it's a kind of people. Those are the people who can meet the day to day living, but they have their spending restrictions. They cannot spend or buy anything they would wish for. Upper middle class are those who can afford to purchase anything, and but not afford for the very expensive things like buying or moving around in a BMW every day, or traveling to abroad very frequently. So they do not belong to that kind of class people. Okay, so by this picture, one can identify that India is a country, is a developing economy where the poor are getting poorer, poorest, whereas the rich are getting richer and richest. Very simple concept is the focus. The prime focus on certain areas which needs to be developed is the factor that influence the economy. The poor category needs certain influence. So if the poor categories are ignored, the poverty is going to increase and there is no help for the economy. And rich, it's a very simple example. We can say when you fill a bowl which is already filled, it outflows, right? Everything comes out. So when it outflows, it either goes in waste or somebody else is enjoying it. So it's always better when you have anything in excess, it is better to be shared among the economy rather than benefit some other country. So it's like India is feeding other countries. You can see the second picture. So this is the state of India and Indian poverty system. And girls also, if you all have the textbook, there is one short story which you could just have a look at. I could have told you the story, but the story prolongs the time limit, so I didn't want to waste my time. You can have a look at that and please understand. All right, girls. So for today, I'll be stopping here, and the next class will be studying more about poverty, the categories of poverty, and so on. There are various topics. So for this, girls, I just want you all to complete your classworks on time, the notes given, and please give in your attendance. As I told you, I need the meaning of poverty and your name and your register number with your section. Register number, it's okay, but name and section is mandatory. It should be along with the meaning. I do not want two messages. I want just one message. All right, in the section groups. All right, girls. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. God bless.